This is the day that the Lord has made. I shall rejoice, you shall rejoice, and let us all be glad in it. It is time for us to get to the point. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond which you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. 1 Corinthians 10 and 13. Welcome. My name is David Johnson, and I am the senior pastor of the Harvest Point Church, as well as the host for the Get to the Point show, our Sunday recap. We talked about temptation, and sometimes fighting temptation can be a struggle. Sometimes we lose the battle to our temptation, and sometimes our temptation take us or lead us farther than what we desire to go. I want to share with you the same thing that I shared with those at Harvest Point on yesterday. The first thing is that process starts with a thought. Then that thought leads to an imagination. That imagination then leads to justification. And that justification then leads to a choice. And then that choice then leads to sin. Temptation to sin, it is a process. It's not something that just happens. It can be years, days, weeks, or months for that whole process to come to fulfill itself in sin. But it does not have to. I'm going to give you an example of how that process works. First of all, I want you to understand the thought. Sometimes what we think, and sometimes thoughts enter into our mind. When temptation comes, sometimes it comes with a thought. It challenges our thinking. So we start the thought process, but even with the thought process, everything we thought about, we did not act upon. Amen. Aren't you glad you did not act on everything you thought? But it's that next step. We go a step further. So then from thought, we go to imagination. And imagination is when we begin to see ourselves or imagine ourselves doing this thing that we thought about. We can actually see ourselves committing the act. We can imagine the feel, the sensation, the enjoyment, or the fulfillment we will get from committing the act. Then the next thing we begin to do, we begin to make justification. And justification comes when we start saying, well, everybody else is doing it. I'm not perfect. I'm still a work in process. So we begin to try to justify the thing that we have been thinking about, the thing that we have been imagining. Now we're trying to justify in our minds why we should do this next step of making a choice to do it. And it's normally that choice part where we begin to make that downward spiral into sin. I want to encourage you here on this morning and this week that you don't have to fall for every temptation. You can have the power to fight temptation. That's right. We all have the power to fight temptation. The first thing I want to share with you is, how do we do it? Because most of the time, it's not that we don't know what is wrong. We don't know what we have done wrong. We just don't know, how do we fight temptation when we feel weak, when we feel like we are without strength? How do we fight it? Well, can I tell you this? You're not strong enough to fight it on your own, because if you could, you would. So the first thing you ought to do is look at what James said in James chapter 4 and verses 7. James said it like this: submit yourself to God. Give yourself to God. All of you, your thoughts, your eyes, your ears, your hands, your feet, your heart, your purpose, give it all to God. Give it all to God. God, guide my eyes. God, guard my thoughts. God, guide my ears. God, watch my hands. God, guide my feet where I go. God, guide my heart on what I feel or what I think. And then, after you have submitted all of you to God, you can do the second part of that, where the text says, resist the devil and he'll flee for you. One thing I know about Satan, he does not like a hard fight. He does not like a hard fight. The Bible says he is as a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. So the first part of that, submit to God. But the second part, if you resist the devil, he will flee from you. Preacher, I know I try to resist, but it seems like I keep falling into these same temptations. I keep having the same struggles, and I know I'm wrong. I know what I'm doing, but I am a work in progress, and God is not done with me yet. And that is true. God is not done with you yet, but don't put the problem on God. God built this whole world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. And certainly, he can help you with your struggle or your problem, your trial, that temptation you're dealing with. But you have to submit to God. We all have to say, I got to include myself because I'm a part of that daily struggle. But we have to first submit to God. And he'll give us the strength to be able to resist the temptation that would cause us to fall. But even if you fall, realize it does not matter how many times you fall, you can get up again. This is David Johnson. I'm just giving you our Sunday recap. If you would like to follow this and get copies of these notes, download our app. And just thank you for your support, and see you soon. Until next time, get to the point.